Good morning, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Federal Reserve's up-and-coming decisions on whether or not to lower interest rates. It seems to be a common narrative that it's not a matter of if, but when and by how much. But yet there is the idea that they may not lower rates. In fact, there is some belief that they could raise rates if things were to shift as far as the inflation expectations going into the future. Something that I found very interesting is Michelle Bowman's recent speech. Now, I have said it many times on this channel, that the Federal Reserve is no longer going for a 2% target, but going for a 2% average inflation rate over time. Nobody knows exactly what that means. They don't give us a metric to understand what 2% inflation rate over time means. Right? Now, just look at some of the statements coming from Michelle Bowman. Now, I pulled this out of a CNBC article. I'll leave it down in the description. Based on the progress, my view has evolved to consider the possibility that the rate of inflation could decline further with the policy rate held at current level for some time. Should inflation continue to fall closer to our 2% goal over time, it will eventually become appropriate to begin the process of lowering our policy rate to prevent policy from becoming overly restrictive. Now, what I know from the Federal Reserve and the things that I have learned and the things that I have been trying to express through these videos that I have put out, even though a lot of them sound very similar, they are not, right? They are very different from one another when you think about some of the things that are taking place on a day-to-day, basis. Think about some of this right here. This statement, our 2% goal over time, right? The 2% goal over time is another way of saying 2% average inflation rate. Now, go and look at the speech. I know a lot of people don't have time to go and read the whole speech, but in the speech, when Michelle Bowman is talking about the average or talking about the inflation goal of 2%, they always add that line over time, every single time, right? And you just listen for it. And it's something that I found very interesting because nobody seems to talk about average inflation rate, right? Everybody wants to talk about how the Federal Reserve is going for a 2% goal. And now their mind is set that the Federal Reserve is going to have inflation at 2%. That's their goal. They will adjust monetary policy to accommodate the economy to maintain that 2% inflation. This is what a lot of people believe out of the Federal Reserve. That is not what they are planning on doing. They are going for a 2% average inflation rate over time, which means that they are going to keep interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time, and the people do not believe it. Look at what happened to the U.S. Treasury, like the 10-year loan, right? Look what happened to the 10-year when the forward guidance, the signaling, the jawboning, and the credible threat of the dot plot map had put that signal out there to people that the interest rates were going to be falling into the future. Look what happens to the mortgage market, right? All of a sudden people are like, oh, right, I can buy a house now and be able to refinance into the future. This is now getting people to make decisions, like major lifelong decisions, right? And they don't know what the Federal Reserve is truly up to because they do say it, but nobody understands what it is that they really mean, right? Let me see if I can find. I will remain cautious in my approach to considering the future changes in the stance of the policy. Remember, this is one of the voting members of the FOMC. Michelle Bowman is. I will remain willing to raise the Fed funds rate at a future meeting, right? So now, I've heard so many of these, economists and analysts and all these people believe that the Federal Reserve is going to be lowering interest rates, but it doesn't seem to be coming from the Fed itself. Now, I wouldn't necessarily believe the CNBC article, right? Because a lot of that is just propaganda, forward guidance, them trying to put out the narrative within the markets, within the media itself. They are trying to put that image out there, right? Whatever it is that they are saying, that forward guidance, that signaling, that is their main monetary policy tool. And we have to understand it. We have to understand what it is that is really taking place. I know even me just talking about it makes it confusing, right? But there's two languages being spoken here. One of them to themselves, and one of them to the public. And we have to understand there's a difference in this, right? The same words get used in the speeches as get used in the public, right? But if we don't understand what it is that they are saying with the meaning behind it, because we have been reading what it is that they are saying to themselves, then trying to understand the credible threat becomes very difficult. So knowing that they are going for an average inflation rate over time and having been so adamant about putting that into my understanding of what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing, when I hear Michelle Bowman say it straight up, our 2% goal over time, that's reiterating that. All these people who are buying homes right now, making this decision, could be setting themselves up for no interest rate drop. And now what? Now they're stuck at these high payments. They were anticipating that they were going to be getting lower interest rates going into the future. Right? See, this is the reason why we have to internalize this stuff for ourselves. If you are prepared for that, then it's okay, right? But planning on there being lower rates going into the future is a very, very dangerous move, right? In my opinion, it is. Because I feel that inflation could come back. In fact, if you think about it, even right now, the idea of the Federal Reserve lowering rates, supporting the mortgage market, will now have home prices probably start to elevate again. There is a lack of inventory out there. It still hasn't been supplied. This is you think about it, what could happen from homes here if the Federal Reserve was to lower interest rates? But however, if they continue to sit on their hands, which I think they're going to, and not do anything at all, then we could find that the mortgage market all of a sudden realizes that the Federal Reserve is not going to be lowering interest rates, and it's going to have to go and find its own equilibrium again. And we're going to find that people's decision making on buying homes is going to be very disappointed when they realize that they are not going to be getting lower rates going into the future. See, I don't know. This is to me, when I look at this stuff, I think about what would happen if they don't? How is it that you can make a decision based on the idea that they're going to do something in the future? That's an expectations. You're putting your future outcome on an expectation that somebody else is going to do something. Think about that for just a second. Anytime that is the case, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. I mean, just the words alone, any circumstance that you're in, if you are going to make a decision based on the decisions or based on the expectation of somebody else's decision, right? You are going to set yourself up for failure. I mean, yeah, it might work out just fine, right? But most likely, there is going to be a failure outcome that could come from that, right? See, this is, man. I really should have done this on a live stream, because I would really like to start asking some questions on this. See, this is part of why I want people to join the live stream. If you enjoyed this video, become a member of the channel. It's $1 a month. Join the live streams. We do anywhere from a half an hour up to 2-hour long live streams where you get to really interact with the community. You get to ask a lot of questions of me, ask the questions of the community. We really are trying to break this stuff down to understand it for ourselves so that we can make these appropriate decisions. See, if we can understand this stuff for ourselves and understand it on a level that is higher than the mainstream media is wanting to dictate to us, then we will become better at what we do. We become better at what we do in our lives, with our relationships, with our decisions and finance, everything that we do, right? So this is how we do it, and we break it down by, really understanding, asking questions, engaging in the community. And this is really where I feel that this channel has really got the value going, is that if we have this community of like-minded people who can have this discussion to break this stuff down for ourselves, so we're not relying on mainstream media or politicians or anybody else to figure this stuff out. We are reliant on our own selves and our own understandings. I guarantee you we will be making better decisions for ourselves. All right, enough of that. I will leave links to all that stuff down in the description. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.